The spiritual mind treatment or affirmative prayer. So I ask you to just settle down and know with me that this is a beautiful universe of good. That everything that we are, that everything we experience is happening right in this all good. That there is nothing but spirit, and therefore each of us must be a child of spirit, an individualization of spirit, and each of us then must have some of the very same qualities of spirit itself, the qualities of loving kindness, of growth, of intelligence, of creativity, of vitality, of abundance. These aspects of life are our birthright. And today, as we come together to celebrate and to investigate what this truth means for us, we are embarking on a great adventure. And so as we are doing that this morning, I know that we are surrounded by great good. And I also know that each and every person who we are close to, and some of our friends who are not able to be with us today, are also surrounded by and supported by God's good. That together we experience health, abundance, and joy. These are the great gifts of spirit that we celebrate today. This is what we are engaged in. I give thanks that it is so, and I turn this affirmative prayer over to Spirit, knowing it is done and inviting you to close with me by saying, and so it is.
So it is. So let's keep in that meditative spirit while we sing, and you can sing along too, for In the Stillness. There is
Cahill and Delaney. Let's give them another round of applause. Well, I welcome everyone this morning to our service. Looks like it's going to be a beautiful day outside. And I'll first introduce myself. I'm Larry Bungay, practitioner here. Can't talk, but I can. Anyway. And it's my pleasure to welcome you here. And as we begin our service, we're reminded of that one foundational principle that Ernest Holmes gave to us, that there is a power for good in the universe, and we can use it. And along with that, there is our mission that we are here to teach, demonstrate, and inspire a positive spiritual approach to life and to living. Now I would like to invite, well, Nikki's not here. So I need someone to volunteer to come up and light the candle. Ruth? And we're doing something a little different from what we've done in the past, as we're using the candles to symbolize and remind ourselves of the underlying spirit of life and unity of all. And we hope that these changes will be something that will not only reflect our beliefs, that will be inspiring for you. And so for the first candle, we light a candle for life. Life is everywhere present, flowing through each and every one of us. There is only one life. That life is God's life. That life is my life now. So please affirm with me, I am life. We light the second candle for love. The birth of love happens within each one of us every time we make room for that Christ consciousness in our hearts and in our lives. We are transformed. We become that point of love within the heart of God. So let us affirm together, I am love.
I am love.
We light a candle for light. The light of God is that presence and power, that we are always walking in that light. And we radiate that light of God wherever we are. And so we affirm together, I am light. We light a candle for beauty, for we are made in the likeness and image of God. We are each whole, complete, perfect, and beautiful, just as we are. We accept the beauty of God's perfection in us now. And affirm with me, I am beauty. We light the candle for joy. Joy is the very nature of spirit and the true essence of each of us. We celebrate the joy of our own rebirth. Excuse me. Our own rebirth in the one God consciousness. So affirm with me, I am joy. And 6, we light the candle of peace. Today and every day, we open our hearts to peace. We are each a center of peace for our world. So please know with me as we say, I am peace. And finally, I would invite you to join with me in taking this moment to recognize our own inner light that is shining within us as we honor our metaphysical path of wholeness, oneness, and mental healing through the practice of universal principles. Thank you, Ruth. Did I miss the announcements? Wait, oh, I had the wrong page, yeah. I thought so. I was on the fourth, not the third. All right. If this is your first visit or are new to our center, we certainly welcome you, as we welcome everyone. And if you haven't had the opportunity, we have a guest book in the lobby you can sign, and so we can communicate with you better. And for anyone whose emails have changed or whatever, that is also a place to take advantage of registering yourself this morning. There's also a welcome packet there that you might please pick up. And I do encourage everyone to stay for fellowship afterwards. Spiritual mind treatment or affirmative prayer is our gift to you on Sundays. So if you have a prayer request today, you can speak to Reverend Kate or to me after the service. Or if you would rather, you can fill out a written prayer request form and put it in the treatment box out on the far table in the lobby there. And our prayer team will pray for you during the week. So now, if you look inside your program, you will see there are announcements printed there. And one thing we want you to be sure and notice, next week is Potluck Sunday. So plan to bring a dish that you like and stay for lunch as we commune together. Our community is obviously a spiritual-based community, but it takes a team to keep this going. And so I'd like to recognize the volunteers and helpers today who may not be on stage with me, but are so very, very important to us here. First, I'd like to thank Ruth Ann for her lovely flowers.
Yay!
Jan Green for our greeting us this morning. Margie Homer for her treats. And Anonymous for video recording. And especially Jan Sherburne and Angel Nava for all the work they do in helping to get us set up and going each Sunday morning. There is a volunteer sheet in the lobby if anyone is so interested in helping to support the church through such efforts. Now let us turn to our program, to the third page where we have the group reading. Let us read together. God is all, both visible and invisible. One presence, one mind, one power is all. This one that is all is perfect love and perfect abundance. I am individualized expression of God. I am ever one in this perfect life, perfect love, and perfect abundance. And now we have our group song. So
Indeed we do, and we don't have lyrics, but you know what? You're going to do just fine. Please stand, get energized if you stand if you're able. And this is called Holy, Holy Way. We've done this many times here. And this is a call and response. So I'm going to call, and Cahill and you are going to respond, all right? Here we go. It's called Holy, Holy Way.
Love in a holy, holy way. Oh, let me love in a holy, holy way. Let me love in a holy, holy way. Oh, let me know the darkness all around me. Let me know
God was beautiful. And now we have Pat Zongan to give us the inspirational reading.
Good morning.
Good morning.
The reading this morning is from an article called The Essence of Science of Mind by Ernest Holmes. Science of mind is the broadest and truest sense, includes the best in science, religion, and philosophy. Science of mind is not a personal opinion, nor is it a special revelation. It is the result of the best thought of the ages. It borrows much of its light from others, but in so doing does not rob anyone. For truth is universal and never personal. We need the entire revelation of the whole world, and even with this, we shall have little enough. The universe is impersonal. It gives alike to all. It is no respecter of persons. It values each alike. The philosopher, the priest, the professor, the humanitarian, and the empire builder all have caught some gleam of the eternal glory, and each has spoken in their own tongue and language, which is of itself universal. Science of mind does not scoff at the works of medical science, for instance. They both work to help heal humanity. Science of mind is compliant to medical science, and when so understood and practiced, will help heal the world of its physical infirmities. The world of knowledge needs to be knit together and not pulled apart. We have no objections to any form of healing. What we insist on is that there can be no permanent healing of the body without correspondingly permanent poise in the mental and emotional life. But there's more. Science of mind teaches that there is a favorable physical reaction and effect which follows a pattern of thought incorporating ideas of health. for the law of cause and effect governs everything. Similarly, it is held that right thinking will result in a greater experience of success and abundance. A successful person thinks success, and the law of mind reacts, has no other choice than to produce an effect corresponding to the causative idea of success. The road to freedom lies not through mysteries or occult performances, but through the intelligent use of natural forces and laws. The law of mind is a natural law in the spiritual world. We need not ask why this is so. There can be no reason given as to why the truth is true. We do not create laws and principles, but we discover and make use of them. Let us accept this position relative to the law of mind and spirit and see what we can do with it, rather than how we may contradict the inevitable. Our mind and spirit is our echo of the eternal thing itself. And the sooner we discover this fact, the sooner we shall be made free and happy.
Well, good morning. It's so good to see you and be with you in this wonderful new year and a sunshiny day too. How about that? So, as you may or may not remember, next Monday is Martin Luther King Day, Jr. And one of his famous speeches, of course, was, "I Have a Dream." So, not only are we going to do one song named "I Have a Dream," but we're going to do two songs named "I Have a Dream." So you'll just have to guess what the other one is. But this first one is the ABBA song, and it was written in, late 70s, I think? The perfect New Thought song. So sing along, you probably know it, you probably heard it a million times, and it's just a great message.
Beautiful again, beautiful. And now we are blessed to have our morning message brought to us by our spiritual leader, Kate.
I hope I'm not too loud. Is that good?
Sounds great.
Okay. It's really, I'm sorry that Reverend Maureen couldn't be here today, but it was really fun to have Larry be our presider, wasn't it? Let's give him a hand. Yeah, he and Elaine have been a part of the center for a long time, and it's just so great to have him demonstrate to everyone how when we study the science of mind, our lives expand. So you did a beautiful job. I couldn't have done any better myself. In fact, you probably did better. So really nice, thank you. Well, I have a talk that I wrote, and then I have the other completely different talk that's in my mind that I started thinking about at 5 o'clock this morning. It's like, oh, why don't I say this instead? But, that's just me. It's January, and this is, we had a really nice Christmas celebration and New Year's Day celebration, but now it's like really January, right?
Yeah.
We're really ready to get back to business. And so what we have been doing for years at the center is in January, we kind of go back to the basics of science of mind and talk about what is this thing. So today's talk is called The Thing Itself. And I would just like to say that a lot of times when we are speaking on Sundays, we're talking about how to apply science of mind in our lives, how to use spiritual practices, how to use the practice of gratitude, for instance. If you think of 3 things that you're grateful for in the morning and 3 things you're grateful for at night, you will actually find that your life goes better. We have a lot of practices that we teach, like meditation, affirmations, how to do a spiritual mind treatment or affirmative prayer. And all of these I absolutely am grateful for. They help so much, and it's something that we can do to make our daily lives and our interactions with other people so much better. But this week, we're going to go a little deeper, and we're going to talk about the why. Why do we do these things? What is the underlying idea behind it all? But before I get into that, I first want to just say that last week, Reverend Maureen gave a New Year's talk. And a lot of times you'll hear New Year's talks that say, here's how to straighten out your life. Make this resolution and that resolution and lose weight and read more and all these things. And what I loved about her talk is that she didn't do that. Instead, she talked a little bit about loving ourselves, caring for ourselves. And she invited us all to do a practice, which we did last Sunday, of writing note cards. And so I have brought some more cards today for the people who were not able to be here last week. So what I'd like you to do is after the service, take a note card on the envelope, address the envelope to yourself, and on the inside, write yourself a note that begins, I love you, and this is what I see for you this year. And give yourself a message of what good you're visualizing for yourself this year. Then go ahead and put it in the envelope, seal it, and we'll hold on to it and mail it out later in the year. But it's, resolve, have a good and happy year. That's our New Year's resolution that we would like to encourage everyone to do it. And the thing is, why is it that visualizing our good in that way, or with all of these practices, is such a powerful thing to do? Why do we always talk about visualizing your good? Jesus said, "It is done to you as you believe." And you've heard also, "Do unto others as you would have them do unto you," the golden rule. The Hindus act the way you want other people to act. Behind all this advice, in order to actually follow this advice, the first thing you have to do is be able to visualize the possibility of good. Good for the other person, good for ourselves. You can think of it as priming the pump, to just begin to visualize this possibility of good. So that's what we do when we practice gratitude and all of the other spiritual practices. And one of the things that I have become more and more aware of after being in this teaching a long time is that religious science centers, or centers for spiritual living, we're not the only places that a person can go to learn about meditation or using affirmations or the power of positive thinking. Some of these ideas have now become very widespread, although I would say a lot of them had their beginnings in New Thought. Over the last century and a half, it's kind of been building, and the thing that we wanted to see happen all along is happening, which is these ideas are spreading out into the world. You can go and read about studies that are being done on the benefits of meditation by great universities now and medical schools teaching mindfulness. But I think, and I think it's wonderful, and I'm really supportive of it, and I like to read the studies myself. But I do think that we have something more to offer than merely the scientific approach to doing some of these practices. We can offer an in-depth look at what's happening in the universe when we are actually doing these practices. When we meditate, it's not simply a matter of changing our brain waves from alpha to beta or theta or something. Something else is happening. When we meditate, we are actually allowing ourselves to get in touch with that universal spirit in which we all live and have our being, but which in the day-to-day we can become, well, we have to in a way. We have to shut it out in order to live effectively. If you think of a person who meditates all the time, they end up being somewhat detached from life. And we're very much in favor of participating fully in life, but we need to take time to meditate, to affirm, to pray, or do treatment in order to center ourselves in a spiritual manner. So there also is something very special about coming together in a group. So, obviously, or you probably assume that I read The Science of Mind and other things by Ernest Holmes when I'm at home, and I do, and that's very useful. But there's something really special about being together on Sundays. And so for many years, because I've been coming here most of the time for 30 years now, and I have to say, and I'm talking about way back when I was, not a minister at all, but just, raising kids in a family and coming on Sundays. Coming on Sundays is in itself an important spiritual practice, because you come back, you're together, and it kind of solidifies our practices. It makes it seem more real, and like you're not just out in left field talking about these ideas, but you come together and you see how other people are using these practices in their lives, and as we know each other over a period of time, and we get to talk to each other during fellowship, and we find out what's going on and how we're doing. For instance, I can share that Reverend Maureen is doing great. She just stayed home to be on the safe side, so make sure she wasn't contagious, but she's recovered from COVID already. So knowing this, knowing how people have challenges and how they're able to use positive thinking and prayer to help them in their lives is very reinforcing for us. So I think that's a practice that we just take for granted, but I really, encourage all of us to think of it as a spiritual practice. Try to be consistent in actually coming together with other people, whether it's on Sunday morning or whether it's in a class. Those are good things to do. So today, we really are going to go a little bit into the textbook, The Science of Mind. This one's a little thicker. I know it's a thick book. This one's a little thicker because it was a gift to me, and it's got, some extra things in the back of it that are added on. But it is a thick book. And so I know sometimes people are intimidated, and I say like, oh, it's 500 pages long. I'm not going to read one page. But it's not that difficult to read it if you just read a little bit at a time. Now, in the beginning of the book, there's an introductory section. It's got 4 parts. Those 4 parts kind of give an overview of all the ideas, and it's great as a refresher. I have to say that. But if you're really new, you might want to skip the introduction and just go to chapter 1, which gives a little more explanation as it goes along about explaining what Ernest Holmes was thinking, his rationale for the things that he says. But I'm going to start with the first part of the introduction, and it's called The Thing Itself. Now, I don't know if everybody knows that Ernest Holmes actually, this is the second version. It was published in 1938. So 1938 was a while ago. I looked it up because I was curious. This is when about the time when Franklin Delano Roosevelt was being elected for only his second of his 3 terms. The United States was just getting over the Depression. At the time when this book was published, unemployment was still 19%. Hard to imagine today. We think, 5% is terrible, but 19%, that's a lot. Yeah. Now, Dr. Holmes was actually born in 1887. His family were farmers in Maine. He, I'm sure, went to a country school, and he did not have to continue in that country school. His parents let him drop out and study at home. So he was very much a self-educated person, and he spoke the way that people spoke in those days. So I was talking to Pat about the reading that she gave, and you did a beautiful job, even though you were saying, oh, these sentences are so long that he uses. And that's the way people used to talk. We're used to speaking in short sentences. Somehow it came about. I don't know exactly why, but it used to be that people made really long sentences. And if you've ever read Emerson, it's just like you might as well, make each sentence a paragraph. They can be so long. So Ernest Holmes is a little bit in between. But when you do read it, don't be put off by the old-fashioned language. Think of this as a workbook. It's something to read and think about. Some of the ideas might seem to have been written in an old-fashioned way. You might even find some sentences in it that you disagree with. I was reading one this morning that I disagreed with, and that's fine. This is not actually the Bible. It's not anything that is infallible. It's something to read and think about. So when you do, if you do start reading it, if you do skip to chapter 1, which maybe is my recommendation, it begins in the beginning God. And Ernest Holmes goes through his own version of the biblical story of creation. And then he says, after he does that, then he says the story of creation simplified, and he gives his own version of the story of creation. In which he says, I wanted to read a little bit about this. God, meaning the supreme spirit or intelligence of the universe, was conscious of itself prior to the creation of any special world system. Being thus conscious and desiring to manifest in form, God did manifest through the power of its word, which is law. God is not only pure spirit or intelligence, God is also perfect and immutable law. As pure spirit, God governs the universe through the power of its word. Hence, when God speaks, and not speaking in words, but metaphorically speaking, God's word becomes law. And he gives his own version of the story of creation. And then he says, any account of creation, however brief, implies, first of all, a universal intelligence, which is omniscient or all-knowing. We call this intelligence God. In philosophy, the word reality is used. So you see, he's saying what we call God could also be called reality. And later he often called it life, the thing itself. And he says in science, we use the word principle. This is the way it is. The reality of philosophy, the principle of science, and the God of religion all have much the same meaning. The nature of the universe in which we live. We describe it as God, spirit, reality, truth, absolute intelligence. Now, in the introduction, Holmes started out by saying, we all look forward to the day when science and religion shall walk hand in hand through the visible to the invisible. Science knows nothing of opinion, but recognizes a government or an organization of law whose principles are universal. And he wrote also that revelation, inspiration, must keep faith with reason. See, the whole basis of the science of mind is that we ought to be able to study spirit that we ought to be able to investigate this thing itself that most people do call God with the very same practical and rational approach that we would take when we're doing any type of investigation. There is no reason to think that the orderliness we find in the outside visible world, where day after day after day, the stars are above, the earth is below us. There's no reason to think that suddenly when you get to talking about the invisible world, it would be random or chaotic. Just the opposite. What we're experiencing is the outpicturing, the manifestation of something which is not chaotic. And so Holmes urges us, and we do this in the science of mind, to study and think about the invisible world with the same logical mind that we use in thinking about our world of experience. And this, I believe, is a really important point that we all need to recognize. It's the reason why it's called the science of mind or religious science, because we're working together, and that's why it's great to come together. We're working together to discover the truth about life. We're not trying to impose any sort of dogma on anyone. Even Dr. Holmes said in his later years that we need to keep science of mind open at the top, meaning open to more and greater understanding as time goes by. And I know that you've heard a lot of times us talk about, the new discoveries in quantum science, and how a lot of that really links together so nicely with what we teach and understand through our study of the science of mind. Now, we share a lot of our basic ideas, our ideas about gratitude, our ideas about kindness with many religions in the world. But we also, I think, are different from many other religions, not all. But we're different from a lot of religions in that we simply do not believe in fate or predestination. We believe in freedom. Holmes states that to even imagine that the creative intelligence of the universe would create human beings bound into some kind of fate to make and create humans who basically would be prisoners living through, this is going to happen, that's going to happen, this is going to happen. Not only does he say it doesn't make any sense, he says to believe that is actually to dishonor the creative power that we call God. We believe that we are individuals and that we are free to discover for ourselves, and to discover the world around us, that we are free to make our own choices. We are free to think pretty much whatever we want to think and live to a certain degree within, obviously, constraints. I always say I cannot decide to be an actual butterfly, right? I'm going to be a person today and also tomorrow. So there are constraints, but other than that, we can make a lot of choices and decisions and live in ways that ripple out from us into the world. And these decisions, these thoughts, and our actions create tendencies in our lives. And that is what creates our experiences. Not 100%, because we're not alone. We're working on this as a group project, let's say. So yes, there are consequences to our thoughts and actions, but our thoughts and actions are not preordained. And so, that's why it's true that when we change our thinking, we do change our lives. And Holmes wrote, we see abundance in the universe. We cannot count the grains of sand on a single beach. The earth contains untold riches, and the air is vibrant with power. True? So then, if that's true, why is mankind weak, poor, or afraid? Why is it that human beings suffer? This is what the science of mind deals with. Why is it so? What can we do about it? Because we believe that humans have suffered enough, and that when we explore, understand, and make changes in how we think and what we do, that we can live a more abundant, more peaceful, and more joyous life. And, basically, we believe, and Holmes says, the divine plan is one of freedom. Freedom is the birthright of everyone, that everyone kind of instinctively feels this, and that our inherent nature is always seeking to express itself. And that is why we listen to our inner voice. That is why we meditate. It's not just to calm ourselves in the way that you would, want the wind to stop so the leaves on a tree would stop blowing around. It's more than that. We calm our mind so we can tap into that deep inner voice, that source of inspiration, which is our birthright. Each one of us is a conduit. Each one of us is a channel through which universal spirit finds expression. And in so many ways, when Larry was lighting the candle for beauty, I know a lot of people are like, oh, I look in the mirror, I'm not beautiful. That's not what beauty means. Beauty is really about magnificence. Each one of us is a spiritual being awakening to our understanding and cherishing that truth, that we are truly magnificent spiritual beings having an interesting adventure here on earth. So anyway, I really encourage you to read a little bit, get out one of these books. We've got some in the bookstore. You can get used copies online very inexpensively, and don't be put off by it. Read a little. There's a great glossary, and so make this January your time to dig in to the science of mind. So, thank you, everyone. And now let's hear from DuVivier.
Thank you, Reverend Kate. That was so inspiring, and yes, we're going to get that book out again.
As Colleen mentioned earlier, coming up next Monday, we celebrate the birthday of Dr. Martin Luther King. And our good friend Carl Anthony, who many of you know, wrote a great song about him called, just like the other one, I Have a Dream. This is also, I think, a really good, not only a tribute to Dr. King, but also it just has a really good metaphysical, new thought, sort of a thread running through it. So if you can just follow along with the words, I think you'll really appreciate the great songwriting that Carl did on this, and also the fine tribute he paid to a great man. 2, 3. with sand. Here lies the symbol of a man. We watch the seasons change, yet some things stay the same. But behold, the future is at hand. Although the image of a man has come and gone, we are left to carry on. If he were here, I know the words that he would choose. He would say, can you hear me? Will you walk with me? I have a dream. Will you pray with me? I have a dream. And forgive with me. I have a dream. Crossed every ocean and within every land. Here lies the memory of a man. He spoke of freedom then, and it's worth remembering. It's time to do all that we can. Although the image of a man has come and gone, we are left to carry on. If he were here, I know the words that he would choose. He would say, can you hear me? I have a dream. Will you walk with me? I have a dream. Will you pray with me? I have a dream. And forgive with me. I have a dream. Can you hear me? I have a dream. Will you walk with me? I have a dream. Will you pray with me? I have a dream. And believe with me. I have a dream. I have a dream. I have a
Thank you so much. That's a Carl Anthony song. If you know him, you should check it out. Thank you.
That was really beautiful.
Isn't that a beautiful song?
Yeah.
I was practicing last night and I go, I can't do this.
No, you did a beautiful job.
That was awesome.
And so perfect to just be thinking about the freedom, you know, and we are following that dream towards freedom. So right now, it's our time. We call it conscious giving. It's really a time when we turn our minds to our own business of living a prosperous life, experiencing the abundance. So I'll give a brief treatment, and then we will take up a collection or offering on behalf of this center. So let's know together that this really is a world of abundance, that there is enough for each of us, and that all we have to do is be positive, understand the truth, and begin to get into circulation and know the truth that as we share, are good, we're making way for more good to come back to us as we prime the pump. The flow of good must increase in our lives, in the lives of each one of us as individuals, in the life of this center as an idea that exists, and in our world with all the people with whom we are in communication in any way, with whom we interact, whether it's through buying and selling, gifting, receiving. We are sharing this wonderful manifestation of spirit that comes to us in the form of financial good and prosperity. So right now, I picture in my mind the beautiful bouquet, and I use that as an illustration of the wonderful abundance of good in the universe. Holding this thought, I give thanks to Spirit for all the good flowing into our lives, and invite you to anchor this thought by saying with me, and so it is.
And please sing, I am so blessed. I am so blessed. I am so blessed. I am so grateful for all that I have. I am so blessed. I am so blessed. I am so grateful. I am so blessed. I am so blessed.
Next week we're going to have a potluck. Following week we're going to have a volunteer meeting after the service, and then the week after that we'll start a new class here after the service. So we've got some fun things planned, and right now I'll go ahead and give a closing treatment, and then on the back of your programs is our last song that we'll sing together. So just know with me that this morning has been a morning of blessings. Just know that each of us has received whatever it was we came to find, that we carry with us out into this day, some insight, some feeling of warmth and light, some new power, some new inspiration, some resolution to love more, to live life in love. It's all good. Life begins right now. Wonderful good unfolds. This is the truth. Knowing it is done, I give thanks. I invite you to join me saying, and so it is. So please rise and find a song.
Open your heart, let your love flow free, right over the ocean, right across the street. Let it flow like a river, let it fly like a dove. When your heart remembers
Have a blessed Sunday, everyone.